y'all, my name is Cassie and I'm the creator of Pieces of Scrap, and in today's video we're going to be doing another Dollar Tree challenge video where I go into this Dollar Tree that's behind me and I need to get everything that I need to make 1 or 2 crochet projects. That is the tools that I need, so crochet hooks, needles, scissors, all of that. I also need to get yarn, obviously, stuffing, any additional things that I will be working with in the project. And if I can't find anything that I essentially need in the store and I can't find something that I can make work to substitute those items, I do have a limited amount of items at home that I have accumulated from previous challenge videos that I will be pulling from for anything that I desperately need to make a project that I can't find here. So let's go ahead and go into this store and see what we can find. Hey y'all, so I'm going to take you with me through my thought process of going through the store and picking out what I need for these projects. Starting off, we entered the store and it was immediately the back to school section that I was looking through. I didn't see anything right away that I would have needed except for like maybe some scissors. After the back to school section, there was a small Halloween section and I spotted these giant pillows, but they were a little expensive for me, $6 each, and I thought it was kind of funny that a lot of these sections would say like $3 and up, but most of it would be like $5 and up. I also found these mini plushies over in the kids section, and then I also found some slightly larger plushies. Both of these were options for our stuffing. Then in the housewares section, I found these indoor-outdoor cushions, and I kept them in the back of my mind because they were pretty filled to the brim with stuffing. I found these pillows in the housewares section as well, but they were lightly stuffed and pretty expensive as well. They were mostly $5 cushions. There were also these little airplane neck pillows that were expensive too, so I kind of disregarded this and had a plan to go with probably the indoor-outdoor cushions. But I also spotted these stuffies over here and looked through them as well. All of them were pretty lightly stuffed, so I didn't go with any of them, but we do see some familiar favorites in here. This little gray dinosaur that I took from my very first Dollar Tree challenge video. Then I was looking around where I usually find the just 1 pound yarn, and it was kind of tucked in behind a lot of stuff in the back section of the store here. They had a couple of carts just blocking this entire section, like they didn't want you to go through there, so I kept that in the back of my mind in case I couldn't find extra yarn. And then I made my way to the craft section. I was really surprised to see all these crochet kits at this store because before they were completely sold out and didn't have any at all, but I was seeing so many kits at this store today. I also saw a lot of crochet hook options, starting with these hooks I already have at home, but then I spotted behind them were 2 different sized hook sets that I don't have, so I ended up leaving behind the pink and yellow hooks to take the ones that I don't have currently, so that we have them for our cached resources for future videos. Then I saw this variated shade of yarn, and this was like the only yarn they had in this aisle, unfortunately, so I took that right away, knowing that that was going to be possibly our only option of yarn. Then I started to look around to see if the yarn was being stashed in a place that was just like not where it was supposed to be. A lot of the times this Dollar Tree is pretty disorganized, so I figured there might be a stash of yarn somewhere that I was just missing, but I wasn't seeing any anywhere. And then I started looking around for any tools like needles or scissors or anything like that that I could grab as well for this project. I found this mesh tube, which might be cool to use in a future video, but I was mostly looking around this floral section to see if they had floral wire. The only thing I was seeing were these wreath rings and floral tape, and that was just not really what I was looking for, unfortunately. Then back in the crafting section, I was moving these beads out of the way because I saw something tucked behind them in this box. We had more crochet kits, as well as some tweed jute cord. So I kept that in mind too in case I couldn't find any alternatives for yarn to crochet with, but I was pleasantly surprised with the amount of yarn that we were getting in these amigurumi kits. So what I started to strategize was probably just getting a bunch of different crochet kits and picking the colors that I needed from them to make a project. Here are the kits I ended up getting, and here is everything that I've grabbed so far. Then I started going around the store to look for things, for ideas for projects. I found this hair clip section in the front of the store on a rack and was looking around for some elastics or some other sort of hair accessory that I could crochet around. I spotted these colorful small set of elastics along with the star clip and also these black elastics, and I saw some more elastics behind here that were like multicolored, as well as these no snag all day comfort elastics as well, but I think I ended up going with the star clip elastics just because it's a smaller selection and I'll probably have colors that match it more. Then I went back and grabbed the cushion and a green skein of the just 1 pound yarn. And then I went into the housewares section and got this mug for a cool idea that I had to make like a mug cozy. And after that, I headed out. That was my haul from the store. Hey y'all, so I am back from the Dollar Tree and I'm ready to show you my haul. So there were quite a few things that I got today. I have almost everything that I need for this video. I think aside from some crochet hooks to fit the yarn size that I have, I got just about everything. And I was able to pick up some items to actually add to like my supply for future videos, so that when I can't find like a crochet hook or something similar that I could substitute for a crochet hook, that way I have something to fall back on. So let's go ahead and get into everything that I got from the Dollar Tree. First off, I got this cushion. I believe it was $5, and this should provide me plenty of stuffing for whatever project I end up making, and possibly future projects as well if I ever need extra left over from previous videos. Then I ended up picking a bunch of crochet amigurumi kits because this is actually the first time that my Dollar Tree that I'm closest to had any kits ever. And I was surprised that they were all priced at $1.25 instead of $5, but this was actually the only yarn other than 2 other options that I picked up that I was able to find in the store. I was also not able to find any like amigurumi eyes or anything like that. So these kits will substitute some of the yarn that we need for these projects, as well as some of the supplies that we might not be able to get otherwise. So here is one of the kits. It was a panda, so this has black and white yarn in it. Then we've got this bee kit. It's got yellow, black and white yarn. I also got this whale kit, which has a little tiny bit of white, but mostly blue in this one. Then there was this flower, like cactus amigurumi kit that has 2 different types of greens and some pink in it as well. And then I think this is the final kit that I got, which is a donut. It has some khaki colored yarn as well as more pink and a darker colored pink, just a tiny bit of it. But each of these kits also has a little bit of stuffing in it, some embroidery floss, there's a crochet hook, and there's also like stitch markers, safety eyes, those sorts of things in these kits as well that we can use pieces from. I do want to limit myself when using these kits to only choose one of the supplies that is within them. So I picked up so many of them so that we have different color options, but also that if I'm using a kit for, like, say, the safety eyes, I'm not allowed to use the rest of the supplies in that kit in this video. Instead, I have to use a different kit to get the supplies that I won't be able to use out of this one. For the yarn that I was able to find in the store, I found this Color Pop yarn, which has a little bit of pops of green and yellow in it. It kind of reminds me of Bloom Chenille or Blossom yarn. and it's acrylic weight 3 yarn that I could use for different projects. I also ended up getting one of these just 1 pound yarns from Premier. I have had the black and the white and maybe the dark blue in the past, but I've never picked up any of this green before, and I think this green will make for a good base color for different projects that I might work on in this video. I also was able to find some crochet hooks that I don't have in my collection from challenges in this video. So I found a 5mm hook and a 5.5mm hook, and I also found a 6 and a 6.5mm hook. Both of these hooks are hooks that I have not been able to find in stores or in Dollar Trees specifically before. I do have the 4 and 4.5mm hook from Dollar Tree, so these will be great to add to the collection for future videos as well. So this video has been very strategic in finding resources that I can cache for later videos to make the process a little bit easier for me. I also ended up picking up some of these detailing scissors because I prefer my scissors to have a sharper end that's smaller for tucking in details or yarn ends, things like that, and these will make it easier for me to do that. So that's why I picked these. Then the last 2 items I have are actually to work around for a project. So first off, I got some ponytail holders, these elastics, and it also comes with this star ring that I might be able to crochet around to make like decorative or something like that. But I'm thinking I can maybe make some scrunchies or something like that with these elastics. And I also got this coffee mug because something I was thinking of doing that I've seen patterns for in the past is to make like one of those cozy or warmers that hook onto the handle of the coffee mug, and that way that gives me like a project idea, and I have the mug to kind of make a sample of and fit for that project. So those are the last 2 items I got from my Dollar Tree haul. So in terms of things that we're missing here, I think perhaps the only thing that we will be missing if we don't source from our crochet kits are probably like buttons for eyes if we're doing an amigurumi project, or buttons if we're using buttons for the mug project, as well as just a needle if we end up not sourcing that from the crochet kits either. So let's go ahead and unpack some of our things, see what we're missing, and kind of scope out what kind of projects we want to do, and then let's go ahead and get started crocheting. Hey y'all, so I have set out all of my supplies on my desk. I put away the ones that I am not allowed to use so that I don't accidentally reach for anything. And I've been looking through my Pinterest and I found some patterns that I think will work. So first off, I found this cozy heart mug that I'm gonna try. It has a button, so we may need to grab a button from my supplies from previous videos. I've also found these scrunchies that use like what looks like worsted weight yarn that we could try to make with our elastics that we got from the Dollar Tree. And then the next pattern I found was this amigurumi octopus pattern. There are some with amigurumi safety eyes, and then there's some that have just eyes and their mouths embroidered on, so I thought that was a good option. And there's plenty of color options here. Obviously I can make it in any color that I want, or even stripe it if I want, so that'll make a great option as well. And then finally I also found this hedgehog pattern that looks really cute. Looks like it uses some bobble stitches that we can try out as well. So we've got 4 different patterns today that I can potentially use in this video. Here is my workspace. We've got my mug, the elastic set out. We've got these hooks. I haven't taken anything out of the packaging yet. Here's the scissors I bought. We've got all of these crochet kits here. And then below, I've got the just 1 pound green yarn, and I got this variated shade of yarn as well. And then behind me is the pillow that we're using for stuffing. And here is where all of my stuff that's usually on my desk is hiding right now. This has all my crochet hooks and needles and all this stuff in. This I found after I put all of that away. I will put it away shortly. But this is all stuff I will not be allowed to use. Obviously, I wouldn't be using like pencil and paper, all that stuff normally, but I needed to get it out of the way. I also have all of my safety eyes and things in here behind me, so I won't be able to use any of that, and obviously all my yarn is behind me as well. So I did do a little bit of reorganizing over here too. This is officially my challenge drawer for getting supplies that I might need for my videos, for future videos if I can't find anything. And something I know that I need for sure is a button for that coffee mug cozy project. So I'm going to be taking these, and I will potentially come back over here once I start working to get some crochet hooks if I choose to need any. I won't be needing scissors. I have scissors. Probably won't be using any glue. If I run out of yarn for like embroidering later, I might grab some of this black yarn, or maybe get some of this black embroidery floss down here for embroidering later, but I don't think I'll be using anything. I also have these lobster claw hooks that I got from Pop Shelf. Might be able to use those if the amigurumi projects that I make end up being small enough. We also have some little googly eyes if my safety eyes don't work out well too. But for right now, I'm going to close this up, and this is all I'm going to take from our supplies that we have cached. So I've got my buttons here. Those will be something I'll need for the coffee mug project, so I'm just going to set them inside that. Now I'm going to take off the packaging for these things so that it's just ready to use, and I'm also going to be looking through my crochet kits to see if there's anything in them that I need. For example, I don't have a yarn needle, so I'll have to strategically pick through which crochet kits I want to use for yarn and which ones I want to use for needle, amigurumi eyes, things like that in this video. I just opened up this whale amigurumi kit and noticed this crochet hook that they have in here. I'm not really sure what size this is because there's nothing on it that tells you what size it is. I probably won't be using it. I may be grabbing either the 4 or the 4.5 millimeter crochet hook from one of those kits potentially if the ones that I have here don't work, but it's probably gonna be fine. I'm not really worried about it. I'm thinking that for this whale kit, I'm gonna claim the yarn that came with it. That is what I'm allowed to work with from this kit, so I'm going to set everything else that it has inside of it aside. Next up we have this panda kit. Another one of these cheap crochet hooks. I think I'm also going to take the yarn from this one because I can see myself needing black yarn and white yarn, black yarn for embroidering, and white yarn for the face of the hedgehog. I'm not sure if, you know what, actually, no, never mind. I am going to keep the white yarn for the hedgehog just so that the yarn weight matches up with these other yarns I'm going to pull out of these crochet kits, because I was thinking for a second that maybe I could use that variated shade as my white, but it looks like it's a little bit thinner, if not a lot thinner than these yarns, so that is why I'm going to go ahead and take this white and black yarn. I'm going to stash the rest of this away because I won't be able to use any of it. And then we've got this amigurumi bee kit. See, now I'm trying to be strategic because I'm trying to figure out what colors I want. I don't think I want any of these colors. I don't think I need any of these colors because I have this green color, this dark green color here already. I don't really need a pink.
I suppose I could get a pink though for blush, but there's pink in this one. Okay, so let me think strategically here. There's a needle and safety eyes and a little bit of black embroidery floss in each kit. This is a lot of yellow yarn that I think will be really good for creating the hedgehog. But I don't know if it's enough to make a bunch of bobble stitches. That's the other thing I'm a little worried about. I don't know. What are my other color options? We have this beige and this green. Honestly, I think I'm gonna go with the yellow. This will be my yarn that I pick from this kit. I hope I don't end up regretting that decision. So I'm not going to be taking any of these supplies from this kit. All right, we got 2 more kits. And I think I'm trying to determine if I am going to use their needle or if I'm going to use the sewing kit needle that I have. I don't know, their needle kind of looks much nicer than what I would be working with if I was working with the sewing kit needles. So I think I'm gonna take the sewing needle out of this kit. That'll be what I take from this one. Just thinking about my decisions here. I think, yeah, I'm gonna take the sewing needle. That's all I'm gonna take from this kit. It's the cactus kit. And then I have this one left. This is all I have left. And I'm debating if I take the eyes or not, because I can just embroider eyes. That's not really that hard, and a lot of the times it looks cuter. So I'm trying to determine if I want the eyes or if I want to get more yarn. These are my colors here. I would have pink to embroider blush with. I'd also have a lot of pink left over for if I run out of this yellow yarn for the hedgehog, and those colors would look good together. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna lock in my decision. I'm taking the yarn from this kit. So here is a final look at my supplies. We've got the elastics, the coffee cup, and the buttons that are from the pop shelf video. As a reminder, I took this needle from one crochet kit. That was the cactus crochet kit. We've got obviously the hooks and scissors that I bought. This was from the panda crochet kit. And then this right here, actually, I think this right here was from the whale crochet kit. And then we got, oh, that's actually wrong. This right here, this was from the bee crochet kit. That was from the whale. And then this is from the donut crochet kit. So those are my supplies. And then down here, obviously I already showed you the green yarn, the white yarn that's variated, and my stuffing. So those are the supplies that I'm limited to in this video. I think what I'm gonna do for the mug, I'm either gonna use the variated shade of white or the green to make that cozy. Then for the elastics, I'll probably make these last, but I think I'm gonna use the variated shade of white or any leftover yarn that I might have from the amigurumi projects. But I'm gonna start with the amigurumi projects just because I need to know how much yarn I'll have left over after I finish those. So I ended up grabbing another crochet hook. I think the ones that I got from Dollar Tree were a little too big for this project, so I grabbed my smallest one, which was a 4mm crochet hook, and I added it to
my supplies for this challenge, and then I started on our first project, which is that hedgehog pattern, starting with a magic ring. It's always funny when I make a magic ring because typically working with amigurumi, I don't really ever make magic rings, especially when working with all these chenille yarns that I typically work with, just because it's much easier for me to chain to and do all of the work that I need to do using the first chain of the chain two. I quickly realized that I still was missing a stitch marker, so I fished out one of these safety pins from one of the sewing kits that I got from a previous Dollar Tree challenge video, and I grabbed that so that I could mark the first stitch of each row. I'm not a fan of working with these safety pins, but you gotta make do with what you have, I guess. I think in the future I should just try to look out for something that isn't a safety pin, because the least convenient part about working with a safety pin as a stitch marker is that sometimes it just threads itself through the strand of the yarn instead of in between stitches, and it can separate the yarn a little bit, which is a little bit inconvenient. Once I got to around the final row of bobble stitches, I had to switch to pink because my yellow body color ran out. I guess in hindsight, I could have got more than one of a single kit and chose to use multiples of that same kit for the same yarn color if I really was thinking that I was going to run out of yarn. But I think I also liked the challenge of having to mix up colors and make it work and make it look really cool. But honestly, I thought that this finished hedgehog, the color scheme that I was going for, kind of reminded me of like a really fat pencil, because you got like that really skinny pink layer of the bobble area of the hedgehog, and then you've got the really big area of the hedgehog that is like yellow, and it reminded me of like a number 2 pencil. Like you've got the yellow paint on the outside and then the big pink eraser. Of course, the white area of my quote-unquote pencil was actually on the wrong side of the hedgehog to actually make it really a pencil, so it's just the color scheme, I think, that just reminded me so much of a pencil and kind of made me laugh to myself after it was done. on to project number 2. I started working on the octopus pattern, which was pretty straightforward. As you can see here, the yarn was a little bit cheap and it was really easy to get the hook itself stuck through strands of yarn if I wasn't careful, so I had to work a little bit more slowly than I normally do when working with this yarn and be really strategic about where I was placing my crochet hooks so that I didn't separate strands. As you can see here, I'm using my calculator on my phone to count rows because typically I work with a row counter. It's this little blue dial that you spin to keep track of your rows, but because I wasn't using any of the materials that I typically have, any of the tools that I typically have, I opted to go with my phone's calculator to keep track of where I was. At this point in the pattern, I was making the tentacles on the octopus, and I know this isn't a pattern review, but something I noticed about this pattern, I know I can't help myself, was just that when I finished the round, I had more than 8 tentacles, so I ended up going back and just placing more slip stitches in between each tentacle, and then still after I did that, I still somehow had less than 8 tentacles, so I'm not sure how that works, how the pattern designer ended up getting actually 8 tentacles. I think when I finished my octopus there were like 5 tentacles total, so not quite an octopus. For project number 3, I was going to make the scrunchie, and this pattern is really simple. All you do is single crochet onto the elastic and then chain 20, then single crochet back into the elastic to secure your little loopy design here, and you just repeat that all the way around. So you have 2 single crochets to 1 chain, and you just repeat that design all the way around. It's a really simple design, and as you can see, it looks really cool when you have tons of loops on this little elastic. It kind of looks a little bit like a pom-pom. It's just really cool to see, and you can add as many as you want as long as you can fit them on the elastic too. So project number 4, I did end up having to pivot because the mug cozy pattern that I chose didn't actually have a pattern on it. I needed to make an account for this website that pattern was on, but the link to make an account was not working, so I found a different pattern, and it doesn't have like the bobble stitch heart design like it does. Instead, it uses a moss stitch pattern all the way around the mug, and it still has that little button fasten in the side of the mug, which was really nice and something I really wanted to include in this pattern. As I was crocheting, I kept holding up my work after each round to compare it to the bottom of the mug to see if it was wide enough to fit around my mug. Something I was a little afraid of was just like the size of my yarn and hook not matching the exact gauge of the pattern I chose because I wasn't really wanting to gauge or anything like that. I was working with supplies that we got from the Dollar Tree, obviously, so it's probably not going to match up with the gauge that they had suggested. So that's why I kept double checking to make sure I didn't need to continue increasing, and just making sure that I didn't increase too much and make my mug cozy too wide. Checking my work again in case the cozy's pattern instructions made it too tall to go around the mug handle. So at this point I was pretty satisfied with the height, and I decided to just make some half double crochets in one row all the way around so that I had a nice even edge across the top. Because it was a nice edge but it wasn't completely even, so I thought I would just even it out and also slip stitch around the gap that goes around the mug handle itself, and it was pretty easy to do. And then when I finished, I was ending up in the same spot where I started, so I could make the little buttonhole. So at this point I had to do a little bit of adjusting because the buttonhole that I made was too long for where I wanted to place the button and sew on the button. And so I ended up removing a few chains and making it shorter to accommodate for my button and where it would be on the mug cozy. Another thing that I noticed was getting this yarn needle through the button itself was a little bit difficult the second time around. So the first passes through each of the buttonholes was really easy, but then going through the second time it got stuck, and I had to use these little scissors to push the needle the rest of the way through. And also what I was noticing after that was just that the needle was starting to bend a lot, and I was really worried it was going to break at any time. So I was really happy that this was the final project that I would have to work on in this video. Here's what I was seeing with this needle. By this time, the eye of the needle was kind of bent closed, and I kind of had to pry it open before sewing my ends into the mug. Hey y'all, so I have finished all of my Dollar Tree projects now. I had to pivot with one of the patterns that I chose because I hadn't clicked on it after I chose it on Pinterest and didn't realize that the pattern wasn't available anymore. So I ended up doing a different pattern, but it's pretty similar. There weren't any bobble stitches to make that heart shape on the mug anymore, but I still think it turned out really nice. So starting with that project, of course we've got our mug here, and here is our little mug cozy. On the back of it we have a little button loop and a button. It's really cute. I really like these buttons and how they look with this yarn specifically, but this is how it works. you slide it onto the bottom of the mug, and then you use this little button loop to button the mug closed. So ideally, the mug cozy could fit just about any mug that you have, just by stretching it over the mug itself and then buttoning it closed. So I'm excited to try this out and have nice little mug cozies, especially in the winter when we're having hot beverages in our house and people might not want to like burn themselves. This will make it so that they can actually hold the mug and not just the handle, and it looks really nice too. So I'm excited that this project turned out so well. On to the next project. Since we're working backwards, the next project that I did were these scrunchies. So here is a black one that I made. I used the black elastic so that when you stretch it, you can't see that the elastic is there. It kind of blends in, but this is a really easy pattern to follow. You're basically just single crocheting and then chaining and single crocheting again to make all these like little loops on here. And then we've got this white variated one, which is really nice. And I actually took my hair down. I had it braided kind of like in the last video that y'all saw, where I had it in 2 separate braids. But for today, I wanted to take my hair down so I could actually put my hair up in one of these scrunchies. So I think I'm gonna do, I'm not sure. I've got a white t-shirt on, so maybe I should go with the white and green. So how does it look? Does it look good? I can't really see. I guess I won't see until I actually edit the video. But it feels really nice. It's not like pulling on my hair or anything. It looks kind of cute from the front as I'm looking at it in my viewfinder. So it's not bad. And it's got some nice support in it. It doesn't feel like it's pulling my hair. I've got quite thin hair, but I've got a lot of it. So I've kind of usually go for like medium hold. I've actually been using like elastics that have like the elastic on the inside and then on the outside it's kind of like this mesh type thing. I've found that those don't give me headaches and they don't pull my hair as much. So this one feels very nice. I also like using my own scrunchies that I make just because they don't pull my hair as much. They feel like they are like a little bit more firm, and they also make my hair a little bit look a little bit nicer, especially when I'm just like popping it in a ponytail. It looks pretty cute, but it looks nice. It looks like some cool thing is going on back there, so I'm happy with the result. And of course we've got this black one, so if I ever need a black one I can use that one as well. Then on to our amigurumi project, starting with this pattern right here, the little octopus pattern. I ended up embroidering the facial details on this octopus, and I also ended up embroidering spots on the octopus. The pattern actually called for you to make like little circles that you would sew onto the head to make like a little bit raised looking circles on your octopus instead of these embroidered circles. But I didn't have like a secondary blue color like the pattern has. It's like you have a darker blue and then a lighter blue, or whatever colors you're working with. It's like you have a darker shade and a lighter shade for the body versus the spots. And because I didn't have any blue, I just decided, you know what, I'm just gonna embroider spots on just because I think that'll look nice and it'll help to adjust for the fact that I ran out of my main body blue colors. So we have these 2 white tentacles in the back, but it looks really nice in the front. It looks like they're kind of the fronts of these blue tentacles, like the back looks like it might be white. It gives that illusion that they're like dual colored tentacles, which is really cool. But overall I really like this pattern. I was surprised that it was no sew except for those spots, of course, if you end up adding those spots. So yeah, I was really surprised about that. I was expecting it to be you have to create each tentacle separately and then sew them on, but that was not the case, and I was very pleasantly surprised. So on to the last pattern of this video. It is this hedgehog pattern, and funny story about this pattern, I kept seeing it all over my Pinterest. I've wanted to make it before, but the pattern was on Ravelry and it's linked to that pattern. Like the free version of the pattern wasn't available anymore because the pattern designer's website is not up anymore. So I had to scour the internet to find this pattern, and it turns out she has a YouTube tutorial with like in 2 parts on how to make this. So that is what I ended up using, and it turned out looking so cute. Of course, I ran out of this yellow yarn, but it's not super like weird looking. I think the pink color change here looks really nice, and it really makes it stand out. I think it makes it pop a little bit more. But I really like this hedgehog pattern, and I would recommend it to anybody who's looking for a cute little sized hedgehog pattern. This one was also no sew. It does have a interesting technique here for separating the body stitches from the head stitches. Obviously it looks like we stopped working in the round there. Instead of doing like leaving your back loops only on these stitches to start your head stitches, you actually create a separate row inside of the same row that you worked when you made this last pink row here. You work into that same row that that's working into, but behind it, so that you have basically a second row of stitches here. Instead of like having back loops only, you had a second parallel row that looked like this one with the face color, and that is what you work on to create the face. So it's no sew. It's a little bit different of a technique than I typically see when working these kind of no-sew patterns, but I really enjoyed this pattern as well, and I would recommend it if you're interested in trying it out yourself. The only downside is that it is a YouTube video, so you have to follow 2 separate YouTube videos. They're both really short, like around 12 minutes each, to make the hedgehog. And yeah, usually I kind of stray away from using YouTube tutorials because I rather just like sit down and have all the instructions written out, and that way I can follow it. But I know that some people prefer watching videos in general, especially beginners when crocheting, and especially it might be more beneficial to have that video for that specific technique that I was talking about, where you're not using the back loops only, but you're creating a second row using the same row that you had already worked in. It's probably beneficial to see a video to kind of figure out how that's supposed to work. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I found some of the tools I was using today were a little bit challenging just because of how cheap they were. So it was nice to have like a little bit of a toned down version of a challenge instead of having like really difficult things to work with, like wrong size hook, or having to use like a sewing needle instead of a yarn needle, those types of things. It's nice to have a break from having like really difficult challenges. I feel like this was more of a mild difficulty challenge, so that was really refreshing as well. If you enjoy these videos and you want to see more in the future from me, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you have any suggestions about where I go to next to do my next challenge video, make sure you leave those comments under this video. And just keep in mind that I live in East Texas, so try to keep in mind stores that I would probably have access to, because in the past I have received suggestions for stores that are like East Coast only, Midwest only. I haven't received any suggestions from West Coast stores, but just keep that in mind that we want it to be in the general area in which I live so that I can actually travel to one of those stores and visit it. Otherwise, it would probably not happen anytime soon, if ever at all, if I'm not able to get to those stores easily. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next week. Bye!